You're listening to the Watercooler Edit with Chris and Rich.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of the Watercooler Edit with my Bayut. Of course, I'm Chris, and while Rich is on a well-deserved vacation, Eman from the marketing department has joined me. Thanks Eman for joining me and keeping me company on this episode of the Watercooler Edit.
Thanks for the invite, Chris.
You're always welcome. So on this episode, we're talking about a few things. The weather is getting cooler, and that means we can play sports outside. Well, not me, obviously, but I do enjoy watching them, and I do enjoy talking about sports as well. And here at Bayut and dubizzle, we're going to have our own cricket tournament after the hype of the Asia Cup. We'll also be talking about books, and where you can read a good book as well, or even borrow a good book from the Mohammed bin Rashid Library. And Expo City, this new location that's been taking the UAE by storm. So Eman, are you a big fan of cricket? Because I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest, and with England not playing in the Asia Cup for obvious reasons, I was supporting Sri Lanka.
Oh, it's just super convenient that they won, huh, Chris, that you're supporting Sri Lanka. Cricket, I'm familiar with the rules, and I wouldn't say I'm a fan, but I don't mind a good game. In fact, for my first ever cricket game, I was super sure it was going to be boring. This was in the stadium, right? So I'd packed a bunch of books in my bag, and my parents were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Just in case, we'll see how it goes. I don't think I'm going to be watching anything. It's going to be so boring, and it's going to be super slow and things like that." And yeah, I took that bag home the same way I brought it in. It's a different experience in the stadium, and we're lucky to live here where they actually do host tournaments and things like that. And even the Asia Cup was rescheduled to happen here. So yeah.
Well, I watched it in the comfort of my friend's home, who happened to be Pakistani. So when Sri Lanka won, because half the house is Sri Lankan, half of it's Pakistani, the reason I support them is because my best friend is Sri Lankan, so that's why. And we were sat maybe 2 to 3 kilometers away from the stadium. You could hear the fireworks going off, and you could hear the celebration of the Sri Lankan fans going completely crazy. But we have something better happening. We, of course, have King of the Swings, where we have our own cricket tournament here at Bayut and dubizzle for 2022. We've already shortlisted the agencies that will be taking part, and we got 3 jam-packed days of intense action. We have the group stages, which take place on 2 days, and then the final day on the 6th of October is the final. Yeah. We could be biased here because, of course, we do have our own team playing. We've got the Bayut and dubizzle team playing.
And they're super competitive, yeah?
They are. I mean, we've had internal tournaments before.
Yes.
We've had lower league tournaments as well where we've seen our team win. Maybe we'll do it again, but of course we can't be biased. Who do you think is the strongest team this year?
Well, I support Better Homes just because I feel like they're strong as a team. Yeah.
I would be inclined to agree with you there because maybe it's just a long-term thing, but I've known about Better Homes for a long time, so it's always a name that sticks out to me. But there are a number of very strong teams that have played. I think we've got the past winners as well from a couple of years ago, so they'll also be quite strong as well.
Yeah, and plus the agencies, they get super involved in this, right? They're super competitive, and it's a fun tournament for them to all come together and just have a fun round of games.
So at the moment of recording this vodcast, we actually got the kits for the all the teams and the players and everything like that. And I've got to say, some of the designs of it are absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
How they've incorporated the colors of the agencies, and plus, I'm still going to admit, ours still looks the best.
I think it's that red-green combo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really stands out. But it is going to be a very competitive tournament. And of course, Bayut and dubizzle aren't going to have it easy. We've got a lot of people playing cricket, and a lot of them play cricket a lot. Even our guys play cricket a lot here as well. And actually saying that, shouldn't really say guys, because I've heard talks that are actually some female players that will be playing this tournament as well. From the shortlisted candidates that I saw, there were 1 or 2 of them, which is actually really cool to see some ladies joining the tournament as well.
I think that's the thing about sports, right? It kind of brings everyone together regardless of all of these sort of elements.
Are you going to be reading a book, though, through this one?
No, I can't. I'll have to help out, right?
You're not going to bring your bag of books?
Why would I?
Well, I mean, you took it to the stadium last time when you watched cricket, so...
I was 6 years old.
I've never watched a cricket game live. That was the first time I've ever watched one.
It's a super different experience when you're in the stadium because you kind of feed off the fans, and especially if you go with a big group, it's super fun. I haven't been to the stadium, I think, since that time, actually. Yeah, and done.
That's what we're hoping for here with the Bayut and dubizzle cricket tournament that's coming up. Fun and excitement and plenty of action over the course of 3 days. But we briefly spoke about books. Now, as you know, I tend not to read many books in a year, probably about maybe 1 or 2, and mainly they're online. So I do have a substantial book collection kind of like my gaming collection, where most of them don't even get used.
What do you mean by reading them online? Like, you mean comics, or do you mean legitimate books, like novels?
Digital versions, not
the ebooks.
not comics.
Okay, fine. That's the same for me, because even I read on the Kindle generally. I do have physical books, but ever since I've gotten into like the whole ebooking sort of thing, I'm just like, I can't go back to the way I lived before.
So you don't like the paperback?
So I do, but I realized I have an issue with the font size. This is a personal gripe though with me. So that's why I prefer the ebooks. You can just control so much more.
Well, a great place if you're looking to... Do you rent... You don't rent a book, do you? You borrow a book, right? From
Yeah,
the
you
library.
borrow a book. But the great thing about Muhammad bin Rashid Library is that you can also borrow ebooks. So if you want to read digitally, that option is available. And even audiobooks as well. So it just depends on what your preference is.
And this is this incredible building that you see. If you go to Festival City and you go watch the light show at the fountains, or even if you're eating one of the amazing restaurants they have there, if you look on the other side of the creek in the Jeddah area, you'll see a building that kind of looks like a giant book. And I've got to say, it's one of the most impressive buildings that I've seen here in the United Arab Emirates. That is where this library is situated. Obviously, the book is a clear indication. I originally thought when I first saw it, because that's where a lot of the dhows are being built or repaired or even just docked, I actually assumed while it was being built that it was going to be a dhow.
Okay.
But it turned out to be a book, so...
So there's actually something unique about the shape of the library. So the way that it was actually constructed and what it's supposed to look like is, if I'm saying this correctly, a rehel. So that's the wooden sort of book case that you keep the Quran in. If you've seen it, it's basically the shape of the library. So that's what it's supposed to look like. And that's what they model the whole library after as well. And it's a massive structure. I was actually waiting for it to open for a long, long time. So it opened in June this year, finally. And whenever we'd pass by on like a Dow cruise or we'd drive through that area, I was like, it looks complete. When is it going to open? So thankfully, it has opened now. And the great thing about it is that it's a massive space and they have so much stuff there. So while, yes, it does have a lot of like library sort of elements, they have a lot of like open spaces, reading spaces. You can book meeting rooms. They have like a theater that you can actually book for events and conferences and things like that. And they also have exhibitions going on there fairly often. I believe the one that they have, it's permanent if I'm not mistaken. It's the treasures of the library. So they kind of feature all of these sort of things, artifacts and like first editions of certain books and things like that. Obviously protected, so you can't go in and mess it all up. And then they have this really cool exhibition on like the history of the UAE. So if you're unfamiliar with that, you can actually go through that whole exhibition and kind of get a better understanding of the values of this country and then the culture and the traditions and things like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I've lived here for a very long time, and I remember going to Union House.
Yes.
And that's kind of where you experience how the UAE was founded, the 7 founding fathers.
And you know, for Union House, they've actually created a museum with it as well. It's called Etihad Museum. So they've actually added a lot of other information there. But basically, we have a really good blog post on both Muhammad bin Rashid Library on My Bayut and for Union House and Etihad Museum. So it actually details all of the sort of instructions that you need to get like tickets and entrances and things like that. So they are free to enter, but you would obviously need to book ahead of time.
So, Eman, I'm going to admit something here, and I'm probably one of the only people to not done this at all in the UAE whatsoever.
Okay.
I never went to Expo. At all.
Why?
I drove past it a number of times going to Abu Dhabi, and I once went into the parking area by mistake because I was trying to do a U-turn and I went the wrong way. I never went to Expo at all.
Okay.
Not that there wasn't anything I wanted to see. Obviously, we had Sir Lewis Hamilton go there, so of course, for me as a Formula One fanatic, I would have loved to have gone see him, but I didn't feel like I had the time or something like that. And then I heard about some of the queues and things like this. However, I've heard that at least 2 of the pavilions are reopening in what they're now calling Expo City, and
Yes.
there's a few other things that are happening down there now.
Yeah, so I think one of the main things, I mean, this was a massive global event, right? Like not just for Dubai, but for UAE as a whole. And as a resident myself, I was able to actually go to Expo quite a few times. I still miss it. Even now, I'm like, I kind of wish they kept it open for longer because there's just so much to experience. So I'm really grateful that they actually opened up Expo City. So as of now, they've opened up 2 pavilions. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but Alif and Terra. So these are one of the 2 districts. So sustainability and mobility.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode of the Water Cooler Edit. If you want to learn more about any of the topics that we've discussed, you can, of course, check them out on the My Bayut blog. So it's Bayut.com/MyBayut. Check out all the amazing articles on My Bayut. And of course, there are many things that you can discover, not just here in Dubai, but the UAE as a whole. Eman, thank you so much for joining me. And we'll see if we'll have you on again. We'll have you on again at some point. See ya.
Bye.
You're listening to the Water Cooler Edit with Chris and Rich.